Firstly, thanks to Karthik, Venkatesh and everybody at iSTEM. A big thank you for them to continuously hosting this hackathon. And also Professor Sadagopan sir, Professor Amit Saab and Professor Srikanth and everybody at IIITB for generously hosting this event in IIIT campus every year. So it's always like we feel like coming back to our second home. It's privileged to be in this campus and nice to see a lot of you out here. So today for next few minutes we are going to talk about the frequently seen accessibility issues in the digital world that is mainly focused on the websites and applications. So we would love to have this as much interactive as possible. But before I get started, I just want to understand few things from all of you. Because me being a person with low vision, I want to know, okay. First I want to know your choice. Do you love hearing lot of theoretical things and understand it? Or do you love doing some kind of exercises? Are you all carrying your laptops or you're all? So or do you all have a text, either notepad or something like a Sublime Text or some editor to write the HTML code? You are? Okay. So do you guys love writing the code? Any of you who is not working directly into the accessibility space, but any of you have the accessibility knowledge before? Okay. Yes. Does any, okay, now let's actually, if I assume correctly, there are about 30 to 50 people in this room or more than that? More than that. Okay. I want to pick 5 people, okay, who are first come first serve basis. You need to tell me what would you like to hear from me. Okay. So from each column, one person can get up and tell me what do you want to, or you guys can spend next 2 minutes, talk to the person who is sitting next to you or behind you, okay, and tell me what do you like to hear from me. In the context of accessibility, digital accessibility, that to web accessibility. Yes?
So my first question is, a lot of Indian government websites are seen in inaccessible. Why is that?
We'll talk about that. Okay, could somebody who is sitting in the first row, can you make a note of whatever the questions are coming in? So at the end of the session, if I forgot something, it's your job to remind me.
Master, will you cover stuff like AngularJS?
Not much deeper, okay, because I myself am not an expertise in AngularJS, but I can just talk about a couple of lines about it.
Accessibility of captchas.
Captchas, okay, okay, CAPTCHAS. Hold on, one at a time. Yeah.
Whenever we come across any inaccessible issues,
yes,
how to put forth the issue with the superiors in technical terms, in spite of telling that in layman language, how to put up the issue?
Fantastic question. So I'll put this as a short question called how do we report accessibility issues to in a technical terms, right? All right.
We are saying it's not speaking.
Would like to add how to share some ideas for accessibility we have.
How to share ideas for accessibility, like how can somebody build an accessible application, right?
So I would add up to it, how do the developers
Yes.
don't have much experience about, say, accessibility in general, how do they make sure that, you know, the website...
Okay, so if I put your question in a short way, for a developer who does not have any accessibility experience, how can they ensure their product is accessible, right? Yes. All right. So, guys, I believe all of you are like students or entry level into your career. So, one of the things you need to learn is, you need to, whatever you want to communicate, it should be crisp and it should be direct. Financial softwares. Infosys campus is right next to you, okay? No, I was referring to Finacle.
I have one question, sir.
Yes?
So, like if the CAPTCHA things is...
Yeah, somebody brought about the CAPTCHA, so we'll discuss about that.
So actually I'm referring to accounting factors.
Yeah, I understand, yes.
First thing is like there are a few people who have never heard about accessibility.
Okay, we'll cover about that as well. So what is accessibility, right? Okay. So are we set? I think we have enough questions to have a discussion, right?
What are the key standards?
What are the key standards for accessibility?
Accessibility varies from person to person.
Not okay, yeah. So standards, we'll also talk about the standards of accessibility. All right? This is also covered in video, right? So we'll be talking about frequently seen accessibility issues. One disclaimer is that I sometimes keep seeing close to my screen, so that whatever is on the screen you are seeing and whatever I am talking, it needs to be in sync. So to refer to my screen, I will be, since me being a person with low vision, I will be looking at my screen sometime. So keep that in mind. Firstly, thank you Akash for that nice introduction. I will just do another round of introduction of mine. So I've been working in the digital accessibility for about 15 plus years, and I came into accessibility by kind of an accidental. Back in 2000, 99-2000, I used to work for the National Association for the Blind, Karnataka, very much in the same city, Bangalore. So my job was to train people with vision impairment using in computers. But at the time, I also have the passion to build the website for our organization. So those of you may have born and educated by then in 99-2000. It was the time where JavaScript was just came in, Flash was popular. Building website is like everybody want to have a website. It's like a passion, like how you used to have an exciting time with the Nokia phones back then, right? So similarly, having a website is also equally that rich, okay? So with the same intent, we also wanted to have a website for our organization, the National Association for the Blind. With the help of a few volunteers at GE, we built a website, leveraged greatly on Flash, Microsoft front page, JavaScript, and layout tables and lot of things, images with no alternate text, okay, forms with no labels and lot of things. We built a very beautiful looking website, and just before the day of launch, we figured out our own website cannot be used by our students who are with vision impairment. Such a great start, right? Yeah. So that is how I started to think about accessibility. So currently I work for full-time. I work at a company called Informatica, which is a cloud data management company. And I also founded something called Serve Om Inclusion, where I write a lot of blogs about accessibility, assistive technology. Assistive technology is less that I write about, but more into accessibility and reviews of different apps and websites. I love sending the problems in a positive manner because I don't like complaining about things, okay? If you start complaining, you will keep complaining, you will never have a solution. But if you actually extend a helping hand to the developers, how to fix their problems, they will be able to do something about it. So, those of you know Vidya, how did she be able to study in this campus at IIIT? If she was not taking initiative to talk to professors and people of solving her own problems, if she is not having the proactive approach, even IIIT wouldn't have given her an admission, and we wouldn't have been sitting here today for the second year of the hackathon. So, in addition, I am also a part of a working group called Accessibility Guidelines Working Group at W3C, which for last 6 months I am not very active due to some reasons, but earlier I was active and I am going to be active after 3 months from now. Okay. I also volunteer at the National Association for the Blind Karnataka, where I help them improve their computer trainings, courses and things like that. I also help a company called Precut Solutions and to with their accessibility services. So that's I live in Bangalore with my wife Hema, and I have a daughter of 5 years and son of 2.5 years. So you can imagine how much exciting time I will be having at home. So we're going to start with the one of the questions that was asked. What is accessibility all about? Guys, firstly, accessibility is not a rocket science. Accessibility is something which will make a product experience better to every user. Every user means any user, including people with disabilities. But a lot of people keep thinking is accessibility helps people with blindness. Yes, it does help people with blindness, but not only people with blindness. That is a myth a lot of people will be having. If I make my website accessible, it only helps people with blindness or people who use a screen reader. That is an absolute myth. So, in fact, making a product usable to or making a product accessible will actually help everyone beyond, including beyond disabilities. So, for instance, it will help people. In India, what is one of the common problems that we see in terms of technology? Of course, it may not be relevant to today because today everywhere you have the broadband. Okay, a lot of places. But still there are some rural areas or some places, even within Bangalore, when you are in some places, when you ask for a broadband connection, the service providers will say, we don't have the feasibility in your area. You still have such areas in Bangalore, by the way. Okay, so you will have the network issues, you will have the bandwidth issues. Okay, even in this campus itself, some places you do not have a good mobile network, right? So somebody was calling me some time back, and we had to call couple of times to get to each other, right? When the product is accessible, it also helps people who have got the low bandwidth, because due to some of the accessibility criteria, it will optimize the performance speed, and if you don't want to load some images, active images and all, you will still be able to see the content. We will talk about that, all these active images and all these terms, we will talk about it, but hold them onto your mind for now. So, interestingly, when a website is accessible, it also improves the search engine optimization. So, there is a correlation for accessibility and SEO. So, it actually gives the equal functionality to every user. It improves the usability. It actually makes the product with a standard compliance. Okay, and there are a lot of benefits. But to briefly answer his question, how does accessibility improves the SEO? Okay, let's take the example of just two examples. One is for any image, we ask as an accessibility practitioners, we ask developer to put the alternate text. Okay, alternate text using the alt attribute. Okay, so that help one is people with screen reader users to know what image is that all about, and especially when it is an active image. What is the meaning of active image? Anybody knows what is the active image?
Something which can be clicked.
Yes, a link, image link. Okay, because nowadays a lot of people create the icons, they don't put the text like home icon or shopping cart. Okay, things like that. So, if you don't put the alternate text, screen reader user will not get to know that is a shopping cart or whatever. That is one scenario. But at the same time, Google, where all the search engines also rely on the text. Okay, they also look for the alternate text of the image. It doesn't understand how beautiful your image looks like. Okay, I don't know how it works now with the artificial intelligence and machine learning. If it is able to understand your image itself, I don't know. Okay, but as far as I know, the search engines also rely on the alternate text for images. And if we take the example of captions, okay, for videos, so even search engines does not understand the audio, whatever you are speaking. Okay, it relies on, it looks for what is the transcript available or what are the keywords available for that video, or if there are captions, there are chances of putting them first. Okay, so there automatically it also improving the search engine experience.
So that wasn't my question. I was asking you if you had a percentage.
Sorry?
So if I'm talking to somebody,
Yes.
what can I quote a figure and tell them that, okay, if you make your site accessible, you will get an SEO improvement of X percentage?
No, no, I doubt. At least we have not worked on the statistics of that part. Thank you. And also, when a website or product is accessible, it also includes the semantic code. So that becomes easy from the technical perspective. Like if a person is coded a website and when it's getting transitioned to another developer for some reason, if this particular developer is either leaving the company or moving to a different project, if somebody else has to take up this project, if the code is so mess, the other person will not be able to understand. So that's why we have a friend called Nicholas Jacos, who used to be a principal engineer for Yahoo homepage, and he also worked at a lot of companies like Box and Microsoft. He always used to tell in his trainings, you should actually read his books that he's written for JavaScript and other things. He always used to tell people, you should not write the code that is understandable by machine. You should first write the code that is understandable by humans. Okay? So if your code developer can understand your code, machine will be able to easily understand it. Okay, so because one of the accessibility requirements is you need to use the semantic coding. So when the code is semantic and easy to read, it actually saves a lot of technical time of the other people. And it's of course going to be easy to use. So going forward, we'll see what are the frequent accessibility problems. And let me tell you guys, if you are familiar with HTML and CSS, not many of these things will be new. Okay, you will end up saying that, oh, this is a common thing, it's a common sense. Okay, let's begin with, what is this? Doc type. How many of you here know the doc type? Okay. Yeah, what doc is it? HTML, HTML 4.0. Okay. The code is pretty simple to write, but unfortunately, a lot of our developer friends ignore to put this. Okay. So, doc type. So, if you don't put the doc type, so the machine doesn't understand what language have you written to interpret, the browser especially, right? Then again, page title. Page title, luckily a lot of people put the page titles, okay? But the problem is, they just randomly put whatever comes into their mind as a page title. I have seen some people put like page 1. Okay, does it make any sense? No, the page title, the rule is page title should give you an idea what is the page all about. If you are talking about a page that is describing about IIIT, if I just put about us, will it be okay? Why? It's talking about our organization, right? Why?
No, it should be end, right?
Sorry?
About us should be end, like, if you're creating page.
Right? No, if the page is about the organization.
That's something you can put.
Okay, but you cannot just put about us, because let's say if you open nowadays, I don't know about you guys, but I know only how to open tabs in browser. I don't know how to close them. Last I have closed my browser is maybe about 6 months ago. Okay, so let's say if you open about 10 tabs, and one is the IIIT website, second is Informatica website, third is iSTEM website, and in all the pages for your fate, you are reading their about pages, okay, and all of them have the about us as page titles. So now how do you know which is IIIT page or which is iSTEM page, right? So you need to have a differentiate. So the rule is that in WCAG, okay, by the way, though we'll talk a little later about that, WCAG, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, is the standard for web accessibility. The current standard is WCAG 2.1. okay, and it is written by Web Accessibility Guidelines Working Group of W3C. Okay. So, the rule says page must have unique and appropriate page title. Okay. So, even within the website, every page must be unique, every page title. You cannot say that IIIT Bangalore for all the pages of IIIT website. You cannot have that, because how do you know which page are you browsing through, right? And this is a commonly seen issue. Do you guys agree? Do you see this problem? So, do you know how to fix it?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we do one exercise while you are having your laptops? So, each thing, whatever we are writing, you must have opened your notepad or whatever text editor, right? So, starting from beginning, let us start putting the code for all of this. Okay, and at the end compile it and see how your page looks like. Make sense? Make sense, yes or no? Thank you. Okay. So, page title must be like it should describe the what page. So, page title should be, you should have the description of the page, like if it is products page, product listing and whatever the organization name, product listing Amazon, okay, or if you are talking about a particular product, Lenovo laptop, whatever, okay, and but it should also have the which organization website is that. Pages, it will have a lengthy website, lengthy page title, like it will like a one paragraph will be written in title, okay, that is not a good practice, avoid doing that. Maybe they will assume that by putting that lengthy page title, it will help for search engines or a lot of users will read that, and in fact, only even we as the screen reader users, we will also read a little of that page title when you are changing from tab to tab just to know what page you are about. Did you guys ever read the full page title in life? Practically? No. Okay, this is another HTML problem that a lot of people do is, they do not define the language of the document that they are writing using the LANG attribute. Okay. So, if you are using English, LANG is equal to EN in quotes, okay, and also when you are, that is the primary language of the document, whatever language you are primarily using. And secondly, if you are, it is also important, okay, when if you in case if you are having a multilingual website, within the page if you have a content in different language, whenever your language gets changed, you should define language there as well. The reason why, okay, it primarily helps the screen reader users, because when if your screen reader is supported for that particular, let us say we have a website in both English and Hindi on a single page, okay. So, if you are reading with NVDA, as soon as it comes to Hindi, if you define the Hindi as a language, the synthesizer will automatically switch to Hindi and read it in Hindi. Otherwise, what happens is, it will continue to read Hindi as English, and you can have a lot of fun. Yes.
I have a question.
Sure.
If I am using Unicode,
yeah,
why it will not detect that this particular content is in this language? Why I need to explicitly define the language?
I don't know answer this question. Unicode should be, but to detect, if you have defined the primary language, okay, at the top, maybe how does screen reader know that you are actually switching to a different language? How does it understand?
I am not defining it.
Yeah.
I am not defining anywhere.
So I don't know. I don't have an answer for this. Anybody has an answer for this? Venkate? Yeah.
Virtualizing the web page is done by screen reader.
Okay.
For that,
Yeah.
for that it uses tags and for virtualizing tags.
Okay.
For that we require the language for understanding.
Okay. So right now I don't have an answer, but we'll figure out in next 2 days we are able to find an answer for this. Okay.
I see the pages of like, I don't know if it's correct or not, but I see the pages are by default encoded in Git.
Yeah. Yes.
So in order to like detect Unicode, we need to change the encoding and then.
No, UTF is Unicode.
No, but yeah.
So we'll talk about this. Okay. Maybe there would be a reason why W3C has decided that whenever your language of parts, okay, whenever you are changing a language, it is recommending you to define the language. Okay, we will figure out why is that happening. Okay. Yes.
If I am using the file extension.
File
extension.
Okay.
Okay. So why I need to explicitly define the document? Because the same information can be inferred from the file extension.
No, why? See, it's a theoretical, right? So we need to go back and do a big research for that. But the standard says that you need to define a doc type, right? Maybe all the browsers may not have ability to fetch from your extensions and all. And you have lots of extensions right today, right? Yeah.
So the browser can show PDF also, that's why I think we need
Yeah.
to doc type.
Yes, I think that could be a valid answer. So next is, okay, here onwards is going to be more practical. You can feel free to include any of your images in your code that you have. So we are going to talk about 1.1.1 image non-text content. So and in that we are talking about images right now. So this is one of the common problems which we see, particularly online shopping portals like Snapdeal or Flipkart. Okay, there could be they are improving, but not every one of them. So you have wherever you have lot of images, people do not put the alternate text. Okay, and I like one thing in the WordPress as a platform, because whenever you are inserting an image, it also gives you a field where you need to put the alternate text. Okay, though it is an optional, but it gives you the placeholder to put. Okay, but there are few situations. If you are having, if it is an informative image, like if it is somebody's photograph, okay, you need to put the appropriate alt text. Again, here the appropriate word is key, because if you put Professor Sadagopan's photograph and put alt text as Srinivasu, it's going to be an insult for him. So please don't do that. Okay. And if it is an active image, like we talked about earlier, if it is a link, image link, you must provide the alternate text. If you do not provide the text alternative using the alt attribute, it is like img src, img space src is equal to within quote you will put the path of the image, and then without putting the greater than, in that itself you will put alt is equal to within quotes you will put the alternate text, and it should not be more than 256 characters. Okay, that's the rule. You cannot, of course, I would appreciate if you don't put that lengthy alternate text, by the way. And if it's going to be, you need to describe something, then you need to use an attribute called long desk. Okay, LONGDESC, long desk, that's long description. And people have tried to remove that attribute, long desk attribute in HTML5, but after a lot of battle, they have retained that attribute, which is a good sign. Okay, so we see the problem that a lot of people do not use this alt attribute. Okay, and if you are using a decorative image, you must still use the alt attribute, but with a empty null, it's called null alt attribute. Alt is equal to quote quote. Why is it so important? The reason is, if you use the null alt attribute, screen readers and the browsers will skip that image. Okay. Otherwise, what happens is, if you don't put any alt attribute, the worst part is, even on the browser as well as on the screen reader, for the screen reader, it will read the entire path of image. Touch wood, if they have a, if they have saved their images on about 10 folders from the root, you will have to hear a lot of information, right? And it's a very simple thing. Putting the alt text is not a rocket science thing. Okay, another thing is CSS images. This is another problem that we see. A lot of people put the background images, okay, to make it beautiful, and then they also put the text on top of it. Okay, so the problem is that if your background image is just for the decorative purpose, it is absolutely fine. But if it's going to provide any information, if it is an informative image, we always recommend bring the image to the foreground and provide the alternate text, because as a CSS image, as a background image, there is no method to provide the alternate text as yet, at least. Okay, so you need to bring the image to foreground and provide the alternate text. And the last thing is images of text. You have a beautiful fonts. Why do you even need to create an image and embed that with the text, right? So as far as possible, use the text as text. Do not provide images of text. If it is some small text, like if something like a register button or something, that is acceptable. But a lot of people, especially when people send out the email announcements about some events or something, they put entire content into one JPEG image and send it to you. Okay? And I will be, I keep smiling a lot of times. I get to, when I am looking at that email on my mobile device, I just see thanks and regards Human Resource Department. Wow. Okay? Because when I don't load the image, this is what I am going to get. Right? So, when you have a lot of text, separate the text and presentation. Okay? And even this is something when you guys are going to work with the communication departments or PR agencies, educate them. Okay? They are beautiful, especially the marketing teams. You can create a beautiful emails using the HTML. Leverage on that. Okay? It just may be, its tendency that creating some mailer in the PageMaker or Photoshop, it may be easy to do, but it actually problematic to a lot of users. And not only users with screen readers, and even the executives who rely on the mobile devices, and if the image doesn't load, they don't get to read it. You are losing those customers as well. So, another problem is headings. Okay? In a lot of websites, like somebody talked about the government websites, they all put the headings on the page. They all put the headings. Even when they are using the Microsoft Word, visually they look like headings. Okay? But the problem is that they don't use the headings markup. For instance, to make you understand in an easy way, in Microsoft Word, in the toolbar, you have a place to select, is it a normal text, is it a title text, or is it a heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, right? And realistically, how many of us really go, when you are writing a casual document or some story, how many of us really go and use those markup to create the section headings and all? Let's be honest.
That particular styles, right?
Yeah.
Sorry? You are talking about styles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, we
Yeah.
usually use that.
You generally use, you are a good person, okay? But a lot of people ignore, instead what they do is to make it appear like a heading, they increase the font size, they make it bold, they underline it, and some innovative people, they also color it differently. And they call it a heading, okay? In the web world as well, they ignore to put the H1, H2, H3 attributes, okay? Instead, they use the font size is equal to XYZ and make it bold, italic, underline, whatever you want to do. Font color is equal to green. Okay? All that people do, but they don't want to use a single word called H1 or H2, right? And even if a lot of websites, even if they do this, use the H1 heading markup, what they forget to do is that they ignore about the structure. Hierarchical, like H1 should follow H2, H1 should follow H3, but that does not mean that if your chapter heading is H2, if there is a section that should have H3, but if there is another chapter, that should be again H2, that should not be H3, okay, because it's a separate chapter, okay, that need to have the H2. So that is about headings.
Okay, I have a question. Coming from a background, like I'm a normal developer, and just
is there any abnormal developers in this room, by the way? Okay.
I just want to know, this question comes from the front that I want to better the work that I develop.
Yes.
So normally when you develop a software, right, we especially HTML pages that has, we always try to keep the styles and everything in the CSS.
Yes.
Right. And we want to modify all these headings and colors and everything through a CSS.
Yes.
How does screen readers handle that? Is it, we try to avoid this HTML tags to make the page more reactive?
No, that is the reason. You can use all the decorative in the CSS, okay, but when you are actually putting, bringing that to the HTML, so you need to use this HX markup. If you don't use the markup, screen readers will not be able to interpret it.
Yeah, so if I answer your question is something like that, I mean, if we are creating HTML for handling CSS, so CSS we need to handle only for styles, only for form. But when it comes to the markup, you know, like your doc tab, like your section, then heading, then H1, H2 or something like that, then you have to handle in HTML documents.
Right, okay. So next we will talk about the tables. This is another common problem that we see. Interestingly, like I discussed in my introductory note, okay, lot of people he is a good developer, though he said he is a normal, but he is a good developer, okay, he uses CSS to design the layout, but lot of developers, they are lazy in writing the CSS code, so they want to create the tables to control the layout. So it's, in a way it's easy to write the table code. Within the table you use the TR and TD and put one content into the left hand side, another into right hand side. Okay, so you don't want to have it look like a data table, so you remove the borders. Border is equal to 0. Okay, but that is a problematic. You should not use table markup to control the layout. The problem what happens is, one is it loses the linearization, and secondly, if you are a screen reader user, before getting to the content, you will have to hear like something like table with 10 columns, 4 rows, okay, first column, second column, one of 4 columns, one of 10 rows, and all this nonsense you will have to hear. Of course, there is one workaround if you don't have a choice but to use the quickly you want to leverage the table markup for a simple layout, okay. Maybe in between a page you are creating some 2-column text for some reason and you want to leverage on table. Then you need to use something called, when you start less than table is equal to within quotes, use something called presentation. Okay. When you use that, it will screen readers will ignore that as a table. So one of the common problems is people use table markup to control the layout, and second problem is when they are actually creating the data tables, okay, and if they forgot to use the TH and TH scope and these attributes, you will not have the association between the data cells and the header cells. That is very important. When you are creating a data table, you need to ensure that, yes, T body, T head, and all those attributes you need to use, so that you will have the association between the data cells and the header cells. If you do not do that, especially users with screen readers will not understand which cell is associated to what column header or row header. Okay? If you are dealing with a very complex table, if you don't define them properly, it's going to be a mess.
Okay. I have one question regarding to this actually.
Yes.
So there is an option with the screen reader, sir, like the syntax, like first it reads in NVDA, first it will read the heading, table heading, and then it will read the table content data.
Yes.
So is there a way to change that actually? Or in JAWS? In JAWS, vice versa it will read.
I don't know. There could be a setting, okay, but I have not experienced that. This section is very important, the form fields. It is a very, very commonly seen problem, okay. And in this I will also cover about something else as well. Firstly, when you have the form fields, again there is no association between the input fields and the form labels. As a result, if you do not use the fur and ID attributes, when you are writing a form, if you do not use the fur and ID attributes, the input fields will be exposed to screen readers in a way that says edit, 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 checkbox checked, radio button not checked, button. Okay? If you do not have the label for that button, it will read like that. Okay? So, it is essential you use the fur and ID attributes to associate between the input field and the form label. Okay? And this is a very commonly seen problem across many forms. Unfortunately, if you browse through the government websites, okay, at least 80% of the websites you will find this problem.
So generally, I mean, they don't use labels, they use sometimes the exact placeholders for the
I'm coming there. I'm coming there.
They are not using ID then.
Yeah, I'm coming there. The another thing is that when people use the placeholders as a form label, so when you use the placeholder as a label, unless you use the right technique to have the label float to the top of the input field when as soon as the it receives the focus. Okay, there is a mechanism. As soon as the input field receives the focus, the label will float and stay on the top. Okay, that is acceptable. But if it's not happening, it is recommended not to use the placeholders as a label. I'll tell you what is the dangerous thing. Let's assume you are filling up a admission form for your college, which is about 40 fields, because admission form it requires a lot of data from you, right? So let's assume all of those form fields from the first name to last field, all of them have used the placeholders. Required is okay. Placeholders as your labels. Okay. You have a lot of patience. You have filled up that whole 40 fields. So what is the one general thing that we all love to do before submitting? We want to review that form and see if we have filled everything correctly, right? So now you go back to the first started reviewing. How do you know which field is related to what? If there is no label, will you be able to find out? No. So that is the reason it is highly recommended not to use the placeholders as labels, unless you have a mechanism where you ensure that label is always visible, okay. Only exception is if you are using a search form where you just have the search input field and the search button or username and password. It's a very small form because it's a common thing, right? So these are small forms are accepted. You can use the placeholders as text if you really want to. That also, as a personally, I don't recommend using that. But if you want to, you can just use for search form and your user login. Okay, but again, not for the user registration form. User registration form will again needs lot of fields, at least 5-6 fields. Okay, so you cannot use a placeholder as text.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, actually, sir, what is the proper syntactical way? Actually, when after a control we want to put label, or before a control we want to put label?
Before the input field, you can put the label either left hand side or the top. Okay, that's the best thing. Okay, because if you put the input field first and then the label, it causes a confusion. Like, is it like, let's have the edit box which is related to first name. Okay, and then you have another edit field and that says last name. Okay, how does user would know which field, especially when you are putting a vertical labels, okay, one below the another, then people would get confusion. So it's always recommended you use the label first and then have the input field in the design. How many of you hear the word called ARIA, Accessible Rich Internet Applications? You're familiar with, right? But in the developer world, lot of people use this ARIA just for the heck of using it. And there in the ARIA attributes, if you read some code, they put anything they want. ARIA label is equal to my first name, okay? Or ARIA control is equal to my document or whatever. So there all the ARIA role, name, role and states, the ARIA states and properties are well defined in the document and you can only use them. And guess what? The first rule of ARIA, as presented by one of our colleagues, Jared Smith, the first rule of ARIA, can anybody tell me what is the first rule of ARIA? Do not use ARIA. That is your first rule. Because as long as you can actually make it accessible using the native markup and semantics, use them, give them the preference. ARIA is like just nothing but as a top up. Okay, it's not the main ingredient. Okay, it's like your sauce on a something bread. Okay, so do not use ARIA unless you are required to use it. If you are building such a, you have no choice but to use a custom widget, then leverage on ARIA. But as far as possible, rely on semantics and native attributes. And lot of checkboxes and radio buttons. Is again a common problem that when you have a radio buttons and checkboxes, they don't put the group them, like group field, group label will be missing. Okay, like if there you have a gender, male and female, it should always read gender, male, radio button checked or not checked. Gender, female, radio button checked or not checked. Okay, but you cannot say that male radio button checked or not. Have you given it for gender or something else? Who knows, right? So the group field has to be exposed to the assistive technologies. Yeah, this is again a common problem that how many of you see links like read more, click here, more, okay? So especially if you are a screen reader user, if you press insert F7 and you browse through the links list, if we just see click here, click here, click here, click here, click here, for what? God knows, right? Yeah. So it is essential, the link purpose has to be descriptive, like click here to know more about IIIT.
Click here to apply online.
Yeah, click here to apply online, or read more about the iSTEM hackathon, things like that. So you need to be descriptive. This is a very easy thing to understand, by the way. Okay, again sensory characters. This is, luckily we don't see these problems in a lot of websites, but it is essential to know. You cannot have an element that requires a particular sense of organs to use the functionality. Like you cannot say that, okay, tick the object in red color, okay? Or when you fill up this form, you will be notified with a bell to ensure you are successfully submitted, okay? If it just give you audio, sound, okay, tick for successful submission. What happens if somebody don't hear? And if something is conveyed only the color, red, green, especially for success, if they show green, and for failure if they just show red, okay, without a text, what happens to a person who has got the color problem or who is blind, right? So you can go back and read in detail about this. So it should not make a user to rely on a particular senses. That's what this talks about.
Also, can you please touch upon mouse over and hover over elements, which is again a big pain point?
Coming there. Okay.
Sir, also please added that what's the benefit of ARIA scripts for this blind
yes.
users?
Yeah, please hold up this till the end. Okay, we'll just quickly touch upon that for a minute. Okay. So again, this is another problem. Audio and video. My apologies if I did not see the video on the iSTEM website fully. Does it have the captions? Yes or no? Let's be honest. If it is not, it is all of your job to go back and put the captions. Yeah. And also, does it have the audio description? Does it? Why do I go to YouTube when I have iSTEM website? Karthik? Tell him. Okay. So, any video content has to have any audio has it need to have the captions, and if it is a video, okay, visual only, like for actions or scenes, okay, it need to have the audio description. Okay, no matter, even if you are saying that, okay, I am just showing 2 scenes and then having the audio message, why do I have to miss the 2 scenes, right? So it must have the audio description for video only content, and it must have captions for audio only content. Okay, that's clear, and that is the problem we see a lot. And whatever things are there on the YouTube also introduced the automatic captioning, but how, closed captioning, but how can that be very accurate? Let's be honest, right? It's a technology cannot do everything. So even though it is providing automatic captions, it is our job to go back and verify, is it done the need job, else what are the things that we need to include in it. It's our job, we need to do that.
I have a question.
Yes?
But nowadays, in settings and stuff, if you go, especially on the phones,
yes,
you've got an option to switch on automatic.
Yeah, that's exactly I'm saying. If you are an author, it gives you auto captions as much as it can, right? What if your video is in Telugu? So tab order is very, very important. when you are actually using the keyboard only users and people with vision impairment, both of them use the tab key to browse through, okay, the website. So, you need to make sure the tab order is accurate, and secondly, when you have a modal dialog, that is modal dialogs, when they open, keyboard focus has to set to the modal, and user should be able to browse within that tab, okay. And when you are done with working with that model, you should be able to close appropriately, and focus should return to the triggered element. It should not allow, this is a very focus management issue is very common in across the websites. When especially if you are adding some item to a cart, you lose your focus. The focus will go to the top of the page. Oftentimes it happens in many websites. So you need to rely about that. Okay. So this is a very common issue, and we'll just touch upon the things about mouse over things. That's we call it about keyboard accessibility. So one of the rules is that all of your elements must be operable using the keyboard. Okay. Anything, is it a drop down menus? Okay, we have a lot of things. On mouse over, it opens up a menu. Okay, on mouse over, you will be able to, it changes the content. Okay, so one of the thing is that all of these elements has to be operable using the keyboard, whether it is a slider, and you have a carousels which will pause, move the content from like images, image galleries. Okay, it should not do automatically. User should be able to operable them using the keyboard. Okay, color contrast is very one of the very commonly seen issue. Your content should be meet the minimum requirement of 4.5:1 between the foreground and background. Okay, so if you use the yellow color text and white color background, it's going to be horrible. Okay, so you need to think about color contrast. And lastly, let's touch upon the question that one gentleman asked here. What was that? ARIA. So ARIA, because the technology is so much become advanced, there are a lot of custom widgets today. Like you talked about AngularJS and Java, Bootstrap and all of these things. When you have a custom widgets, natively make them accessible is not really easy. So ARIA came into picture. ARIA is again a W3C standard. Like for example, when I take a product and add to the cart, how would I being a screen reader user, how would I know that my product is added? Visually people will see a number will jump into the cart and the cart becomes number 1 or 2, 3. Okay? How would I know? So using the ARIA, there is something called ARIA live regions, and there are different set of ARIA attributes. You will be able to make this happen. As soon as you added a product, it say kite has been added to your cart, and your cart is updated with 3 products. And it will also go to the extent and say your cart total amount. Okay? So for the dynamic interfaces, ARIA is very, very helpful. So, yeah. Yes. CAPTCHA is one of the things that is used for security purpose. Okay? We will not be able to go away with the CAPTCHA, but alternative has to be provided. Okay? Like which will we mostly work with all disabilities. Like some people use the audio CAPTCHA and text-based CAPTCHAs, and Google reCAPTCHA is there now. Okay? The WebVism, okay, that is an additional service by somebody, but we cannot just rely on that. Okay? It may, and I will keep hearing that it would not work. Okay? In fact, a lot of people go back and complain saying that WebVism is causing the security issues.
Yes.
Right?
We can make it user. We can make user.
Right? So CAPTCHA is something where you need to figure out how it can be used by everyone. You need to figure out a way. But I personally like the Google's reCAPTCHA. It's getting a lot of improvements. I know some of you will complain saying that it doesn't work always as expected. Okay? So that's it. But reCAPTCHA is when did it got introduced? Just about a couple of years ago. Right? But CAPTCHA exists for years, but at least some work is happening. Always there will be a solution. Okay? We are looking forward. All right? So the slides will be shared with you guys, so you can have a look at them, and you can read a lot of content on my website, sarvaminclusion.com, or shoot me an email anytime if you want to know something. Thank you guys. Thanks again.